order. First order of business is in the absence of a chair or vice chair. Robert's Rules of Order calls for us to elect a chair pro tem who will basically run the meeting for today. Councilmember Parker, you are recognized for a nomination.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Committee Member John Rutherford to serve as our pro tem planning chair today.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker, and I accept your nomination. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I declare that the nominations are closed, and we will vote by acclamation on the one. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Thank you. Moving on with the agenda for today. First off, I want to say welcome to all the members of the committee, and in particular, I want to say welcome to the new members of this committee and of Metro Council. Being your first meeting of planning and zoning, I detect a quorum, and I see that everybody is eager to go. But I will begin by calling the roll. Councilmember Allen, Councilmember Benedict, Councilmember Cap, Councilmember Cortez, Councilmember Gadd, Councilmember Gamble, Councilmember Harrell, Councilmember Horton, Councilmember Coupin, Councilmember Parker, Councilmember Rutherford is here, Councilmember Vo, Councilmember Welsh. Okay, we have a quorum. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment? Okay. There is no one signed up for the public comment period, so we will move on with the agenda. I believe everything on our agenda for today will be on consent. Before I read them, is there anything that needs to be bumped? I will ask again after I've read all the captions, but wanted to ask up front. Okay, seeing none, if you would bear with me while I read the captions for the agenda. Number one, RS 2023-31 by Coupin and Porterfield and others, authorizes the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure, to enter into a facility encroachment agreement with CSX Transportation to construct, use, and maintain communications, conduit, and fiber in the railroad right-of-way along Broadway between 10th Avenue and 11th Avenue in Davidson County. Item number two, RS 2023-33 by Prepteat and Porterfield and others, approves a second amendment to ordinance number BL 2017-590 to authorize the Director of Public Property Administration or his designee to acquire by negotiation or condemnation in the name of the Metropolitan Government fee simple interest in the parcel of property located at 2026 Abbott Martin Road for the purpose of realigning the intersection of Hillsborough Road with Crestmore Road and Glen Echo Road. Item number three, RS 2023-34, Coupin, Rutherford, and Parker, authorizes Nashville Urban Venture LLC to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 607 Overton Street. Item number four, RS 2023-35, Coupin, Rutherford, and Parker, authorizes 125 11th Avenue Property Owner LLC to construct and install an aerial encroachment over Alley 225, Comer's Alley. Item number five, RS 2023-36, Cap, Rutherford, and Parker, authorizes 714-730 Main Street, Oz LLC to construct and install aerial encroachments at 730 Main Street. Item number six, RS 2023-37, Toombs, Parker, and others, authorizes a participation agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Department of Water and Sewage Services, and the Clear Blue Company to provide public sewer services improvements for Clear Blue's proposed development as well as other existing properties in the area. Item number 7, RS 2023-38, Coopin, Rutherford, and Parker amends ordinance number BL 2022-1588 to authorize Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon additional sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes and easements, and to update the map and parcel information for now 2 properties located at 110 Joe Johnson Avenue and 500 2nd Avenue North, also known as Metro Permanent Supportive Housing. I believe that is all the items on the consent agenda. And lastly, I will ask, is there anything that needs to be bumped from that agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion on the consent agenda? Moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of moving the consent agenda say aye. Opposed, no. Any abstain? Motion carries. That completes the agenda that we have. We have one more thing that we're going to do, and that is hear from planning in regards to the CIB. We have someone ready for a presentation? Hang on, let me make sure you're on here. Test it. Is your mic on?
I believe it is.
There we go.
I believe we should be pulling up in just a moment.
Bear with us while we get the tech figured out.
Good evening, council members. My name is Greg Claxton with Nashville Planning. I'm going to talk to you tonight about the capital improvements budget and the council request process that kicks off this month, and we'll be kind of working with you on over the next 2 or 3 months. Some of what I've got for you, background on the CIB, you may remember from your briefing, your orientation last week, but I'm going to go through it again because our CIB is somewhat unusual. As a reminder, any capital improvement that Metro makes must be included in the CIB. A capital improvement is any building, structure, work, or improvement. Usually we're looking for something with a long lifespan, 10 years or more, and with a cost greater than $50,000. For context, the current CIB adopted for FY24 included over 1,000 projects requesting $20 billion over the next 10 years. Because of that, you may have heard the CIB referred to as a wish list. That's because of kind of the unique function that it plays. As I said, any capital improvement that Metro makes must be in the CIB. However, being in the CIB does not guarantee funding for a project. It simply outlines a list of things that Metro could spend money on in the coming year. It includes 6 years of projects, but because you re-adopt it every year, it's only binding on the first year. Once a project is in the CIB, it needs some further council action to allocate money. The primary mechanism here is general obligation bonds through a capital spending plan, sometimes referred to as a CSP. But there are also revenue bonds, 4% funds for things like equipment, furniture, fixtures, that kind of thing. Enterprise funds or an operating budget request, and then federal or state funding. The annual cycle for the CIB takes up about 9 months of the year at this point. We start in October through about January with this council request process. I'll talk through this in more detail in the second part of my presentation. Then in January and February, departments collect and submit their requests to finance. Finance conveys those to the planning department, and the planning department assembles an initial draft CIB. By the end of April, the charter requires that the planning commission vote to recommend the CIB to the mayor. Then by May 15th, the mayor has to submit his draft CIB, and then council has to vote to adopt the CIB by June 15th each year. I'm going to walk through a little bit of what goes into the CIB through the structure of the document, just so you have some sense if you take a look at it on our webpage, what you're looking at as you go through. There's an introduction to it where we just try to summarize the CIB in different ways to show what kind of requests are being made. And then we have two sections that outline projects requested by the Urban Services District, requested to be funded by the General Services District. Right now, the USD projects, it's only a couple of things. Most of the requests come in for GSD funding. And then finally, what I'm going to spend a couple minutes looking at is what we call project details, where we outline a little bit more context for what each project is. So this is an example page from the CIB. Given the volume of requests that we have, we've tried to make it as compact and concise as we can. And so just to give you an example of some of the information that's in here, across the top in the red boxes, you'll see first off a project ID. So 19DS0040004. Every project in the CIB gets a unique identifier. It's carry forward for as long as that project is in the CIB. So if you look back over several years, in this case, back to 2019, that's what that 19 is for, you'll be able to find construct sidewalks on Central Pike if you search for 19DS00004. In the middle is the project title and description, sidewalks on Central Pike. And then off to the right is a map of the project. For every project that we can that's got any kind of geographic component, we try to map it and identify where in the county it is and its exact boundaries. Off to the left side, we've got our report out on how each project aligns with Nashville Next, our general plan, for any project where we think there's some meaningful connection. So general IT projects, general hospital projects, pure sort of furniture renovation projects. We don't tend to assess against Nashville Next, but if there's any sort of broad connection to the vision and guiding principles from that document, we try to make that assessment and report out. And then in the middle is sort of a crucial section. Because the CIB collects a lot of different requests, one of the things we try to do is use it to communicate what are the different ways that people prioritize around it. And so we have a planning commission priority that we recommend to the commission and the commission votes to adopt. We have department priorities, like what projects have they prioritized. And then we have the council priority, which is what this process over the next 2 or 3 months is establishing. In addition to individual projects, one of the things we try to do to make the CIB somewhat more manageable and somewhat more understandable is organize these projects into overarching programs. So things that Metro does over and over and over again, we try to treat not as a one-off thing, but as kind of an ongoing program. And so these come to us in different forms. So for example, NDOT's State of Good Repair is one line in the CIB that says kind of repair our transportation infrastructure, $20 million or $30 million a year for 6 years. Other departments submit a lot of individual projects. And so, for example, MNPS itemizes every individual school renovation or school expansion project or categories of district-wide projects. And so what we've done is collected those together into these programs, district-wide, renovations, expansions, so that you can find all of those in one place. This is an example where we try to highlight for one of those overarching programs, just to give it a little bit more attention and convey some sense of where is the department seeking to spend money over the next 6 years with this request. And then here's an example from libraries, new library requests, newer replacement library requests, where we've collected individual lines and grouped them under this overarching program. This is our attempt to make kind of the document a little bit more meaningful and a little bit more understandable. I'm going to talk about this request process in just a moment. Before I do, let me pause and ask, do you have any questions about the role of the CIB, how it functions, how we put it together? Any general CIB questions? All right. So the process that you're about to undertake is specified in a council rule. I think you're going to readopt your rules tomorrow. along with a one-time rule for this to recognize kind of the recency with which y'all took office. But I'm gonna walk through this so y'all have a sense of what we're working on over the next few months. So first, in the next couple of days, we'll work with council staff to distribute projects from the FY24 CIB. That's the projects that were adopted last June that are sort of in effect for any spending requests. Previously, and we would send these out as just a whole bunch of Excel files. We're now trying to have sort of a more of a web-based thing where you can go in, just see projects in your district and kind of mark one by one whether you'd like to keep them or remove them. I'll walk through that in detail in a moment, but that's a new tool for this year. Your review and any requests for new projects, I believe the rule for this year is looking at November 15th. Obviously, if it passes, obviously that's up to y'all to determine, but that's what we're working towards right now. Otherwise, the default in the current rule is October 31st. Once we've received all of the projects from y'all, we collect them together, we start mapping them, and we associate them with departments and send them out so that departments can do a review. And the goal of that review is threefold. One, so that they can provide you with an estimate of the costs. In some cases, projects are complex, and so they may say, well, we need to identify the land first, or we may need a planning phase first. They'll provide that back to us. Second, they'll assess projects against their master plans so that you have some sense of whether this is kind of in alignment with their overall departmental goals or if there's some gap there. And third, if there are any known issues that they've identified with the project, such as it's on land we don't control or there's other limitations, they try to provide that as well. They provide all of that information back to the planning department. We assemble and organize and report back to you all, a report on all of your requests, the cost estimates, any issues, that sort of thing. That's typically due in mid-December, but I think we're anticipating potentially moving that to early January. The basis of that is that's then the basis for a joint budget and finance and planning and zoning committee for council to set your priorities to feed into the next CIB. And so I'm going to walk through the current task now in a little bit more detail. We have a new website called NAC. It is something that our housing division within the planning department set up for use by them, but they have kindly loaned us access to it for this process. And so when you access this, when we send these instructions out in the next few days, you'll have two primary tasks. One is review current projects that are in the CIB from FY24, and the second is add any new requests that you have for your district. As a reminder, all of this is working towards next year's CIB, FY25. So anything that you add won't go into effect until July of next year. So this is kind of getting a head start on that work. It doesn't affect the current adopted CIB. You'll have a login page. Councilmember.
Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I actually do have a general CIB question. I know many of the projects that are in the current CIB and the last probably 20 years CIBs are sidewalks. Are sidewalks ever funded through the CIB, or are those actually projects that we can remove the bulk of because we have another mechanism for that?
Yes. So there are a lot of individual itemized sidewalks in the CIB. To my knowledge, those like an individual sidewalk that says this street from here to here, I don't know of any instance where that CIB project has been funded. Instead, what's also in the CIB is an overarching program to construct sidewalks throughout the county, implementing the walk and bike master plan. That is typically what's funded year after year. So you could remove all of those individual CIB requests and still fund the program overall. It would shorten the document. It would make it more usable. Yeah.
And also, traffic calming projects that are in the CIB, do we have more efficient mechanisms for actually funding those and getting them done more quickly?
Absolutely. That is also the case where there's a lot of individual projects in there. Those individual projects are never funded on their own. Instead, the overall traffic calming program is what's funded.
So there's no danger in us removing all these sidewalk projects and traffic calming projects and cleaning up the document for our district?
In terms of the potential to fund those projects, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bradford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me, even though I'm not in planning. Following up on the sidewalk question, so if the mechanism is in the CIB, how do we then advocate for the sidewalks in our districts if we're not doing it through the CIB?
Sure. So I think that gets to what is the purpose of the CIB. And I think one of the mechanisms, one of the roles that it's serving now is a communications function. It's letting people know what's in there, what needs are, what has been prioritized. As a communications device, I think that's something that you might discuss, kind of see about how you can have those communications with your district. You might talk about kind of what your priorities are with NDOT as the implementer of the sidewalks program. But that's sort of a communications question and not a funding question, which is sort of the core traditional role of a capital improvements budget.
Okay, thank you.
Continue on.
All right. So when you first get the software link, it'll ask you for a login and a password. Your login will be your email address. Council staff will have passwords. We'll find a way to distribute those. And then once logged in, you'll be able to see just the projects associated with your district. And so you'll see something like the screen on the right, where it's a list of the project IDs, the project titles, and the total funding amount. Now, for some district-wide projects, it will be like the total, or I'm sorry, for some county-wide programs, it will be the total funding for the entire county, not funding for your district, where it's unlikely to be broken out like that. All of the projects from last year will be preloaded. There is one quirk of this year that I want to bring everyone's attention to, and that is that council districts were associated with projects just through our GIS system because there's new district boundaries. And so what that means is that in some cases, there will be projects that are probably not for your district, but they happen to touch it. So if your district comes up to a certain road and a sidewalk comes in on the other side, it may get associated with your district. And so because of that, we've included one of the things you can tell us is this is not in my district. That's fine. That helps us clean it up. I try to catch those as I can, but I'm very confident I haven't gotten them all. As you go through, in addition to weeding out any that aren't in your district, if there's something that you know is no longer needed in the CIB, either because it's been funded, because it's not going to be funded through, kind of a discrete program, or you know that there's an issue with it, or you simply don't think it's necessary anymore, you can mark that as no longer needed. If there's something that you would like to keep in the CIB, you can mark it as remain in the CIB. And so that column that says resubmit status on the left side, if you click that, you'll have an option to mark all of those things. There's also an option for new. You don't need to worry about that. These are all resubmitted, but you'll see how to add new projects in just a moment.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilmember Benedict, you're
Thank you.
recognized.
Thank you, Chair. When we say something is not in my district and submit that, then how does it get to the correct council member?
So it should be, so the main problem that we're having is that districts touch more projects than are really within the district. I don't think we're going to have an instance where a project is not associated with the correct district at all. So it's like where there's a little bit of overlap, like we drew kind of a circle in one place and there's, a few square feet of overlap. That's the kind of thing we're looking at. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, continue on.
There is an option to provide more details and provide a comment. It brings up a screen like this. Most of these are preloaded information from last year's CIB that's just there so you can get a little bit more insight into the project. However, there is the opportunity to update the status. And then also, if you do have a comment on it, a question, more information, something that may have changed in the last year, there's a place to provide a comment. Otherwise, the rest of the information is on there that's just sort of FYI, the prior estimates, the implementing department, that kind of thing. I do want to highlight that in some cases, projects have been flagged and are recommended for removal. Some of the common reasons are cost below the $50,000 threshold, a project that can be implemented without a CIB request, such as the traffic calming program we were talking about earlier. And then sometimes where a project has an issue that's been identified that makes it unimplementable or is unclear for the department usually requests sort of further coordination, but where it sort of looks like it's not a viable project, or below the $50,000 threshold, that kind of thing, we'll default the resubmit status to no longer needed in CIB. If it is something that you want to retain, you'll need to go in and just make that change. And then lastly, for adding a new project, we've tried to make this kind of as simple and straightforward as possible. For each project, we're asking 3 things. One is a title. We would appreciate it if you could keep these very short and succinct, just because we've got a lot of these going in. If you find yourself putting punctuation in, it's probably a sign that you've put too many words in there. For description, this is just giving us and giving departments a little bit more information about things that may be relevant to them as they establish cost estimates or are trying to understand exactly what you're looking for. One critical thing is anything roads, and I know, given our discussion, but sidewalks, greenways, bike lanes, that sort of thing. If you're talking about something that's a line along a road, you need to tell us what the start and end points are. Otherwise, if you say sidewalks in Old Hickory Boulevard, we'll do it as the whole thing. You'll get $1 billion cost back, and then you're just looking for like an intersection to a bus stop or something like that. Last, under project need, we do want to understand what it is that you're looking to achieve, what is the underlying community need, and so being as specific as possible is useful. So safety is very, very general, very important, but also very vague. If you can be more specific, like high accident location, pedestrians have trouble crossing the street, that helps departments understand what it is that you're actually trying to achieve, and they may be able to recommend a more feasible, quicker to do project that accomplishes your goal. I'm happy to take any further questions about the process tonight, or if you've got questions after this evening over the next month and a half or so. Thank you.
Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and it's really a comment more so than a question. Just thank you for providing this great website and service. This will save a lot of time and be a lot more user-friendly than the paper documents that we've been using in the past. I guess that this was, the link to this site was sent out probably today in the email from Ms. Mulligan. It was not sent out yet. Yep. When will we get that?
I think we're working to finalize a couple of things on the website, both this tool, a document that has a map of all of the projects in your district and a list if you want to print something on it and be able to see it, as well as the interactive map if you want to be able to zoom in and take a look at all that stuff. We're trying to get all of those prepped and finalized and hope to have it in the next day or two.
Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. Based on what you just said, Mr. Claxton, is it, we have the ability to see so in the past, we were able to see the final list of everything that we were submitting. It sounded like we might be able to pull that down and be able to save it, or you said print, hopefully not print, but I mean, maybe print, it depends. So that we can see everything that ends up getting submitted prior to, or after it's been submitted.
So you'll be able to see everything that you've added, plus all of the current projects from that interactive tool. What we'll also put up is, for the mapping portion, is a static list of what's in the CIB currently. Once we've closed the request process, whatever deadline council selects for either the end of October or mid-November, we'll email back everyone with a final list of everything we have submitted as a check to make sure that we got everything and you see that we've gotten everything.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And just so that it's clear, I want to make sure for our new members that you can ask questions even though you're not on the Planning and Zoning Committee. Questions from non-committee members are more than welcome. So do we have any further questions at this time? Councilmember Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A quick question. What's the best way to look at historical funding by district, and is that possible?
Actual funding or requests?
Either would be great.
So all of the prior CIBs are archived on our website if you search for National Planning Department, look for, it's in the email that Lisa Milligan sent out. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Vo, you are recognized.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation, Greg. I do have a question. Do we have the data on stats on what has been funded over the years and what is left, like over the 6 years, and what happens to projects after the 6 years?
So Metro has not traditionally tracked individual spending at the sort of individual project level. You'll see kind of spending reports that accompany the capital spending plan that are sort of at the line level. So paving this amount, but not like the individual segments that get paved, that sort of thing. I believe there's a couple of interactive web pages from the last 2 capital spending plans that document in more detail where spending has gone. I don't know how they're summarized. And Metro is, our ITS is leading a process to sort of establish a kind of an enterprise system for tracking all of that and going forward. But it doesn't extend as a historical record.
Okay, but moving forward, we plan to. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I will ask one myself, and that is for new members and for that matter, for returning members who will think of a question after the fact. What is the best way to get a question answered if we don't get in front of you right this moment? What do we do?
Sure. By all means, I'm happy to, my email is up on screen. It's also available through the Metro address book. I think if you email me or Matthew, we can usually address, I think, any CIB related question or connect you to who is best to answer.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? Anyone at all? Mr. Claxton, thank you so much for the presentation, and we certainly look forward to the process ahead.
All right. Absolutely.
All right. I believe that is all that we have on our agenda for today. I will ask, is there any objection to adjournment? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.